The year is 1944, at the height of the Second World War. The Manhattan Project had been producing and researching plutonium. Many critics, inside and out, naturally expressed health concerns with the material's production. Glenn Seaborg, one of the lead scientists that first synthesized the new element, thought plutonium's effects on the body should be investigated, suggesting that a program to trace the course of plutonium in the body be initiated as soon as possible, with the very highest priority. The year is 1945, and the United States military has just approved such a program. Dr. Joseph Gilbert Hamilton was chosen to direct it, with 3 new official test sites being approved: Manhattan Project Army Hospital in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Billings Hospital in Chicago, Illinois, and the University of California Hospital in San Francisco. Across those 3 sites, 18 subjects were chosen, most of which being poor, from marginalized communities, and powerless if they were to find out about the experiments, the 2 youngest subjects being 4 and 20 years old, with the remaining mostly past 60 years of age. These subjects had no idea that they were being experimented on for the duration of their quote-unquote treatments. Of these 18 subjects, the most notable was Albert Stevens, a 58-year-old house painter from Ohio who had settled to California with his wife in the 1920s. In 1945, he visited the USCF hospital, citing stomach aches. On the spot, the doctors there diagnosed him with stomach cancer. Without his knowledge or consent, he was injected with 2 variants of plutonium, 238, highly radioactive due to the half-life of 88 years, and 239, not so hot with a half-life of 24,100 years. It should be noted that while the hypothesis was that plutonium can have some role in cancer treatment, the treatment was not intended to be therapeutic. This was merely for observation. A few days after the injection, Stevens was sent into surgery. Inside him, the surgeons found that Stevens merely had a benign gastric ulcer with chronic inflammation. This meant that the death sentence Dr. Hamilton's team had used to justify Stevens' inclusion in the experiment did not exist. Startled, the surgeons sewed him back up after having already removed his spleen, most of his 9th rib, lymph nodes, part of the pancreas, the left lobe of the liver, and a portion of the omentum. After he woke, he was kept under close observation, mostly analyzing how much plutonium would be excreted. The potency and detectability of plutonium-238's radiation made this job much easier. As Stevens' condition improved and he was ready to return home, the Manhattan District requested further waste examinations in exchange for money, which he accepted. The hospital justified the offer on the pretext of his cancer treatment and remarkable recovery being observed. According to Albert's son, Thomas Stevens, his father
kept samples in a shed behind his house for storage, and an intern and a nurse would pick them up once a week.
The waste collection and analysis post-injection would last 340 days. Stevens would continue to visit the UCSF hospital whenever he had health problems, and about a decade after the injection, a radiologist observed
rather marked degeneration in the lumbar region of his spine and several degenerating discs.
This was attributed to the fact that plutonium accumulates in the bones in the form of deposits. For the remainder of his days, nobody ever explained to Albert Stevens or his family that he never had cancer, nor did they tell him that he was subjected to an experiment at the hands of the United States government. His wife and daughter were reportedly suspicious of the waste pickups, thinking he was some sort of guinea pig, but disregarded it when the treatment seemed to have worked. They simply believed in the medicine at UCSF's hospital. As they say, ignorance is bliss. Stevens' family, the other subjects, and the rest of the American public were totally oblivious to these experiments. Exposés detailing Stevens and the other California subjects' identities were released in 1933, exposing the top-secret experiments to the American public once and for all. Of the test subjects we know of, it was found that Stevens had absorbed the most radiation by far. Stevens accumulated roughly 64 sieverts of radiation over the 20 years after the experiments. Putting that into rates, that's 3 sieverts per year, or 350 microsieverts per hour. For reference, the permitted dose for a United States radiation worker is just under 3 microsieverts per hour. Only 5 sieverts can be lethal. Had Stevens been injected entirely with plutonium-239, this total would have been significantly smaller. Stevens lived until January 6, 1966, dying of cardiorespiratory arrest at the age of 79. His ashes were divided between the Argonne National Laboratory in Lamont, Illinois, and the National Human Radiobiology Tissue Repository at Washington State University. As for the overseer behind these experiments, Dr. Hamilton himself perished in 1957, having succumbed to leukemia induced by the radiation he had spent his entire professional life surrounding himself with. A few years before his death, he wrote in a memo recommending future radiation experiments differ from human subjects, saying his own experiments had
a little of the Buchenwald touch.
In today's age, we should hope it's unlikely that Stevens' record will ever be broken. His story is a testament to the era of unethical medicine, when technology seemed to be advancing faster than our morality.